Hey, how's it going everybody? Welcome back to Aussie Fish Keeping. So in today's video, I'm going to be showing you how you can make your very own mini waterfall terrarium for super cheap. So I've done this quite a few times, especially back in COVID, in lockdown, when I had a bunch of spare time. I would just make these. They were super cheap and super fun, and you can customize them however you want to. So these little terrariums are perfect for any sort of like office space or like your bedside table, kitchen, anything like that. And they're also great to keep things like small cherry shrimp in. You can keep snails in there. They're not so great for aquarium fish, but you can do this on a larger scale, and you can obviously keep fish in that larger size setup. So yeah, in today's video, I'm going to be running through everything you're going to need, how much it's going to cost you, and how I like to set them up. Obviously, it's up to you how you want to set it up. But yeah, it's definitely going to be a super fun video. So without any further ado, let's just jump straight into today's video, and I'll go over some of the materials you're going to need to make your very own mini waterfall terrarium.
Alrighty, so this is basically everything you're gonna need. Obviously, first things first, you're gonna want some sort of glass aquarium. So I'm using this little candle holder that I get from Kmart. If you don't have a Kmart anywhere near you, any sort of home decor store should have something like this. And then you're gonna want a little Kmart filter as well, or some sort of power head filter. You could alternatively use an aquarium pump, but I do prefer the filter, and I'll go into that a little bit more later on in the video. You're also gonna want some sort of aquarium tubing. Now, if you are going to use the Kmart filter, you do need a 13mm tubing, and that's just going to fit in the Kmart filter nice and tight. You're also going to want some filter foam. Now, you usually get this stuff in big blocks. I've just got a bunch of leftover pieces. You can use leftover pieces as well, or you can get the big blocks, but this is definitely necessary for making sure your rock structure stays nice and strong. You're obviously then going to also need some rocks, so I'm using this red lava stone or scoria, but you can use like Seru stone, you can use dragon stone, any sort of stone you want. You can also use wood if you want to. I'm not going to use any wood today, so it's just the rocks. And to stick these rocks together, you're either going to need scaping glue or super glue. I just use super glue. This is literally the cheapest super glue I could find, so it doesn't need to be anything special. All super glue is aquarium safe, and it's super great at sticking rocks together for aquascaping. So yeah, any sort of super glue should work. I do recommend just like your general super glue brand. I don't really know what this brand is, but yeah, it was very cheap. You're then gonna need some paper towel. So this actually helps you stick your rocks together. I'll go into this a little bit more later on in the video as well, but this is definitely necessary for setting it up as well. You're also going to need some sort of substrate, so I'm using sand, but again, it really does depend what you want to use. You can use gravel, sand, aqua soil, dirt, whatever you want, and whatever you have access to. So I'd actually recommend using something out of like an already set up tank, or even super cheap sand from like a hardware store, just so you can keep the cost for this setup as low as possible. So the next thing we've got on our list is accent stone. So I've just got some small broken up scoria. You don't really need this, but I do think these setups look a lot better when they do have some sort of accent stones in there. So you can just pick this up from like a landscaping store. Even aquarium stores sometimes sell this, and any sort of hardware store and things like that as well. And then the final thing you're going to need is either some aquarium plants or terrestrial plants that do well in moist environments. So I've literally just gone down to my local creek. I've got some beautiful little ferns. I've got some semi-aquatic moss. I'm not too sure what it's called, but it grows on like the river edge down near the creek, so it's definitely great for this. I have used it for these sorts of setups before as well, and it absolutely thrives. And I've also got a little bit of foxtail. I'm not too sure if I'm going to use this, but yeah, I just got this out of one of my aquariums. So I would highly recommend either going down to a local river or creek and collecting your own, or going to like a hardware store, getting some cheap plants from there, or even trying to propagate some from other tanks in your collection, just because aquarium plants can be quite expensive, and we do want to try and keep the budget for this setup really low. But yeah, with that said, that is basically everything you're gonna need. Obviously, there's a few things you don't need on this list, but it is just up to your personal preference what you want to use and what you don't want to use. There's also other stuff out there that you could use as well, but yeah, like I said, it's really up to your personal preference what you want to use in your setup. So as for the price list, this is basically everything I paid for all the materials we're using today. So first things first, the little glass candle holder from Kmart set me back $8. The silicone I used to seal it up and make it waterproof was also $8. The Kmart filter is around $12. The filter foam around $5. Lava stone was $8 a kilo. The accent stones were $7 a bag. The sand was free. The plants were also free. The 13mm tubing was $3. A nice big pack of super glue was $2, and the paper towel was once again free. But with that being said, I guess without any further ado, let's just jump straight into today's video and let's start setting up our little mini waterfall terrarium.
Okay, so now that we've gone over the list of materials, before we can actually get into scaping, you are going to need to make yourself one of these. So basically what this is a modified Kmart filter, and it's basically what you're going to use instead of just a general pump to pump your water from the little water reservoir at the bottom of your terrarium up through your waterfall. And the reason I use this instead of just a general aquarium pump is because it's a lot cheaper. So this is about $15 and this tubing is probably like 50 cents. Whereas a actual aquarium pump could cost you anywhere between 20 to 50 bucks. So I just prefer to use the modified Kmart filter. It's super easy to make, and right now I'm going to show you how you can make your very own mini waterfall pump. Okay, so first things first, you're gonna get your normal Kmart filter, and what you're gonna do is take off this bottom part. So that's pretty easy, you just sort of pull it off. And you can also take off this part. And then this is basically the main pump. So what you're gonna wanna do now, I'm not gonna do this because I already have one made, but you basically get a hacksaw or any other sort of saw and just cut off this top part here. So where this cap is, you just want to take off that, but you want to be careful you don't cut the cord, just because that's obviously not that great. And then once you've done that, you should be left with something like this, obviously without the little piece of tubing. And then what you're going to want to do is get your piece of 13mm tubing. So this could be a siphon, or it could be this piece of tubing, which I just got off Temu. And basically you're going to shove that in the hole and then super glue it, making sure that you're not putting too much super glue in, just because you don't want your super glue to go down and get stuck inside the pump. But then yeah, that's basically it. So now you've got your very own mini waterfall pump, which you can use in your waterfall terrarium. So now that you've got your little pump all sorted, the next step would actually be to silicone your little candle holder. So this was from a previous setup, so I've actually already got this one siliconed, but basically you're just going to want to use any sort of aquarium safe silicone, particularly if you want to put like aquarium plants and shrimp and stuff in there. If it's just rocks and moss, then there's no need to bother with the aquarium safe. You can just get the cheapest silicone. But yeah, once you've done that, you want to let it dry for at least 24 to 48 hours or whatever your silicone says to leave it dry for. And then once you have your final sealed little tank, it's ready to start setting up. So the first thing to do is actually start off with your aquarium foam, and this is sort of going to be the building blocks of our waterfall, and it's also just going to mean we have plenty of space for beneficial bacteria to grow, and it's also going to mean nothing clogs our pump. So I like to cut a little piece like this, and this is basically what the pump's going to sit on. So this will go in the back corner, just like that. And then I'll get a little piece like this, which is a lot thinner than your first piece, and this piece is going to sit just here, and I'll do this just to show you a lot better, but basically it's going to sit like that. And your mini pump, you can see it's got this little sort of like bump here, and that's just going to sit there perfectly, and it'll mean your pump can stay upright and stable. So now that we've got this cut, we can actually put that straight in our little terrarium. So once again, that big piece goes in, little piece follows, and then your pump goes in, and I try and make it so that the cord is as close to your corner as possible, just so it's easier to hide the cord when you're finished. And another thing that you can use, which I'm actually going to use, is a peg, just to help you keep your cord in place while you're scaping. So you want to try and pull your cord as tight as possible and just quickly peg it. And then once you have your pump situated, there is something that you are 100% going to want to do. I've done this without it before, and it absolutely drives me insane. And that is, you're going to want to put some foam in between the pump and the actual glass, just because these pumps vibrate a lot. And when they're vibrating up against the glass and they're stuck in there, you can't move them. It absolutely drives you insane, especially if it's on your bedside table. So that is definitely something you're gonna wanna do. So now that we've done that, also I will just quickly say I am sorry about this oil sort of stain here. I don't know what that's from. But yeah, basically now we can literally just start putting in our rocks and gluing them together. And while you're doing that, you want to make sure you're backfilling with the aquarium foam. That's just going to stop any of your little aquarium shrimp or snails from getting behind there. It's also going to minimize the amount of movement in your rocks, and it's going to make it a lot easier to stick it in. So I've got my rocks here. And I generally like to start with the bigger boys. So this one's a perfect example, as you can see. And yeah, basically this part's all up to you. However you want to do it is the best way for you to do it. So I'll chuck on a time lapse and I'll see you when we've got all of our stuff secured. Okay, so as you can see, I've got the base done. And now what I'm gonna do is stick this together. So there's a certain way you're gonna wanna do this, and this is where your paper towel comes in. So I'm sorry about the close-up, but basically, you just rip a little piece of your paper towel and you sort of just scrunch it up into like a little ball or whatever you call that. And you're gonna jam this in between your rocks, and this is gonna make it so that when you put your super glue in, this part is actually gonna dry exactly like a rock, so it's going to be super solid and it's going to hold your stuff together a lot better than if you just super glued it without this. And the cool thing is, you don't need to get nervous. When you put this stuff in, it may actually smoke a little bit and fizzle. I'll see if I can get that on camera. And that did actually freak me out the first time I did it, so yeah, just a heads up, that might happen. And I will just say, if you have tweezers, this is a lot easier. I'm going to try and do it without tweezers just because, but yeah, it is definitely a lot easier with tweezers. I actually forgot to mention before, but something else you're gonna want when you're doing this is actually just lava rock dust, and that's pretty easy to make. You just get a lava rock and crunch it up, and you should get all this nice fine dust, and you're just gonna sprinkle that over your glue once you place it in there, and that will just hide it a lot better and make it look a lot more seamless when it's finished. So now that I've got my glue in, I just go over with my dust and lightly sprinkle that over. Alrighty, so I think now I'm completely done with the rocks and sticking them, so I'm just gonna let it dry for a bit, and then we'll come back and we'll start putting the moss and the plants in, and we'll clean up the sides a bit. And then after that's all done, we can finally put some water in it and see how the waterfall runs. Alrighty, so it's now been drying for a bit. I've also gone ahead and just shoved a little bit more filter foam in all of the rocks. So now what I'm going to do is put some sand in, I'm going to put some accent rocks in, and I'm also going to start putting in the plants. So first things first, I am just going to throw in the sand. I'm going to try and do this as neatly as possible. I'm not going to lie, I sort of messed that up a bit, and now I've got sand all over my rocks, but that's alright. I'm also going to go ahead and throw some sand in the back here. When I put a plant in, I'm going to put a nice fern back there, so I'll put some sand in back there after as well, and that'll probably come through here as well and fill up the front a little bit more. And then as for the accent rocks, you really just want to put these wherever there's holes or wherever you think could use them. So I like to do them around the bottom of the other rocks. So as far as rocks go, I think that's going to be it. As you can see, I've stuffed them all in like little pockets up here. There's one there, a few down here, and I've also mixed them in the substrate a bit. So now we're going to get on to the fun part, or what I think is probably the best part, and that's planting it. So obviously here are all our plants here. I've got my nice big fern over here, which I'm going to try and shove in that corner. Okay, so now we've got this nice big fern. You can actually not even see it. It's growing all the way out there. And now I'm just going to get onto the little fern and some of the moss. So the moss is by far the easiest part in my opinion, just because wherever you put it, it's going to look good. But I like to try and have it so that it looks very natural and so that it's sort of growing over the waterfall. We've also got this little fern here. I don't know if he's doing so great, to be honest, but we'll chuck him in anyway. Actually, no, he won't. He kind of looks dead, to be honest. Final bit of moss. We're going to try and grow this little bit submerged. Now, I will say you can glue this stuff, except I don't really find the need to, especially since it's sitting in there really nice, and that, in my opinion, is looking super good. So now I'm just going to take this upstairs, we'll put some water in it, I'll turn the waterfall on, and we'll see how we did. So that is going to bring us to the end of today's video. I hope you all enjoyed, and I hope you guys have a lot of success making your very own mini waterfall setup. They're super fun to make, super cheap, and they're a great way to liven up any empty or boring space around your house. But yeah, with that said, if you did enjoy today's video, make sure to go down and subscribe, and while you're down there, smash the like button and comment your thoughts on today's video. I always love going down there and reading them all, and I try to reply back to as many as I can. Also, make sure to go check out my website, aussiefishkeeping.com. I've got heaps of rare guppies up there. I've got some catfish, endlers, snails, all sorts of live fish, botanicals, other aquarium essentials. So yeah, if you haven't done so already, please make sure to go check that out as well. I'll leave the link to that in the description. But yeah, with that said, I hope you all enjoyed, and I'll see you all in that next video.